Hey, what's up, friends? JaCubAsAlways back here today with week 2 of the ITL. Guys, I know this match is a little late coming. I think I think this match is about like half a week or to a week overdue. But yeah, life has been pretty busy, so we're back. We're here with week 2, and yeah, so we're going up against Noiverns Nation this week. Pretty exciting match because yeah, this dude doesn't actually have a dark type, so Lele's looking to go in. He does have the Clef key on his team. He also had a Cresselia, which was definitely something that could take hits from my Tapu Lele, but I did have countermeasures in place for that if he did decide to bring it. But as you guys can see, um, my opponent has brought a Klefki, the Tapu Koko, the Hitmonchan, the Araquanid, the Weezing, and the Salazzle. So a little run over of the mons that I'm bringing this week. Firstly, he doesn't actually have a ground type, so Volt Switch is pretty free versus my opponent's team. Really solid for getting momentum versus stuff like a taunted Klefki. I'm rocking Taunt on this set just to shut down potential spike stacking by Klefki. As you guys can see, I don't have a Defogger this week, and I'd really rather not be hazard stacked if I can help it. And being able to taunt, having the ability to prankster taunt a turn 1 Klefki could really be clutch. Volt Switch is really solid, outspeeding 4 of the 6 mons on his team. Salazzle's probably going to be creeping my Thunderous outspeed anyway, and Tapu Koko naturally outspeeds by a long shot. So I'm modest. I'm running modest this week. Max special attack. I actually need max speed to outspeed a certain threat in his team. I think it's like Mimikyu. He had a Mimikyu on his squad to outspeed like Jelly max speed Mimikyu. So that's why I'm running max speed, and yeah, running Taunt, Nasty Plot, Volt Switch, and T-Bolt. Pretty fun versus his team. He doesn't have a check to it. Like Tapu Koko doesn't really appreciate Volt Switches and T-Bolts. They're still going to be doing a decent chunk, and I do have solid checks to Tapu Koko on my team. So the next one we have is my especially defensive Licky. Basically here to pass wishes to my stuff like my Lando, to my Reggie, to my Muck. If I can pass a wish off to something like a weakened Thunderous versus a Weezing or a Klefki, that'll be pretty nice too. But yeah, basically Licky's here to 1v1 stuff like Salazzle. I do have Earthquake and Ice Beam. He had a Dragonite on his squad, so yeah, he definitely had some offensive powerhouses. But yeah, this Licky will be able to check any variant of Tapu Koko, which is really nice. He's like, I think his Z move Tapu Koko on this team. We're allowed to have 1 Zmon per team. Mine being Landorus T, and I believe his was Tapu Koko. I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And I know that with Wish Protect, I'll be able to take it on. I can scout for Z move Electric with Protect if he's like Z Wild Charge or something like that. But yeah, having Wish Protect is just really solid in this matchup, especially because of the way my defensive core is structured. So next up we have my physically defensive Registeel. I really needed to check the stuff like Dragon Dance Dragonite. If he did bring it, it also is a really solid answer to like a Swords Dance Mimikyu, which was definitely a potential threat on his behalf because it's pretty solid versus my team. Like Licky can't really break it by virtue of its typing, and it has it has a whole bunch of like nice utility options. But yeah, it's always good to have a check to stuff like that. I got Iron Head, Ice Punch for Dragonite. I got Stealth Rocks, pretty essential in this. Like if I can get up rocks, I'm chipping down Araquanid and Salazzle 25% every time they come in, just making it nicer and nicer for my Tapu Lele to just put in work late game. Then we have the Curse Trapping Mark set that I actually brought to my MPL match versus Anthony. The set that should have won the game but got crit. And yeah, I just wanted to bring in this match because it does trap stuff like Cresselia, it traps Weezing, it traps a lot of his team, to be honest. It traps Klefki, it can trap Hitmonchan, but I'm going to want to have a curse, at least 1 curse up before I attempt to trap that thing, because close combats are going to be doing a lot, because Hitmonchan's pretty strong. I can trap Salazzle as well, because I'm max Spadef with Black Sludge, and I do have rest to rest off burns. So like, for instance, if I'm in a situation with this Weezing where like I want to I want to tank a Willow trap and then curse up and then rest, I'll be able to I'll be able to go ahead with that. So then we have Scarf Tapu Lele, pretty solid Revenger to stuff like +1 Dragonite, E-Speed being immune because of the Psychic terrain. Also really solid versus Klefki. The Psychic terrain does help because it prevents the Prankster from activating with like certain moves that target Lele, so that's pretty solid. Just a really nice revenger for his team. Like, unless Tapu Koko is scarfed or Salazzle is scarfed, it outspeeds his entire team. I do expect him to be packing a Scarfer, so we'll get into that once we start the match. But then we have Double Dance Landorus, pretty solid versus his team. I'm actually carrying the Z Fly, so that's going to be able to OHKO Wheezing at +2, which is pretty tight. So if you look at his team, like his whole team loses to Double Dance Landorus. Like he has absolutely nothing to take on Double Dance Landorus if I get the opportunity to set up. So we're going to jump into it. I'm going to lead off with my Thundy, as I do expect him to at least lead off with Klefki, as I don't have a defogger. If he doesn't expect the taunt, I can get a taunt and then get momentum first turn with the Volt Switch. Before I jump into it, I want to give a huge shout out to JaCubAsAlways, who my man actually gen my team for me, and I really do appreciate that. And a really big shout out to King Bub for actually recording the game for me. Yeah, really, I'm really lucky to have good mates who just help me out like that. So that's awesome. Thanks, guys. But yeah, I'm gonna lead off with my Thundy, and we are gonna taunt his Klefki. As my opponent actually makes a really cool play turn 1, and actually goes for the Dazzling Gleam on my taunt. So he must have predicted me to press taunt here, as he just goes off for the Dazzling Gleam. And this does a lot to my Thundy. This does a decent chunk. I'm not a minus for Def Nature. That's an invested Klefki, definitely. So I'm going to Volt Switch this turn, as he actually switches out, which is really solid for me because I get momentum here. He goes into his Tapu Koko, which I suppose he was predicting like maybe a nasty plot there or a T-Bolt. But this Volt Switch lets me get momentum, dealing decent damage off of this Koko, putting it in guaranteed range of Scarfed Lele's Psychic at this point. So I'm going to go into Lele here, and yeah, I'm going to bring up my Psychic Terrain, which is really nice because now if he does want to stay in and click an electric move, he's going to die first up to Psychic, but if he did, it'd be severely weakened being out of the electric terrain. But he's going to bring in his specially defensive Araquanid, which is a really interesting set. This thing actually choose a modest Scarf Psychic, which is really cool. Like, you know, the past two teams I've faced, like this team and the one before, they've had really kind of innovative responses to Tapu Lele, which is pretty cool to see. The first week being Delphox, of course, that is Solfest Delphox shoot hits, so that's pretty cool. But I'm going to go into my Registeel off on his Araquanid, and I'm just going to take this opportunity to set up my Stealth Rocks. I see he switches out to his Hitmonchan, which is actually a huge threat to my defensive core, being able to break through Registeel and Licky alike. So that's definitely interesting. It's definitely going to be something I'm going to play around in this match. It's yeah, definitely a threat. He's going to Rapid Spin as I go into my Landorus here. Now, I go into my Lando, I get the Intimidate off, and Hitmonchan is a mon on his team that, as I literally just mentioned, handles my defensive core superbly. This is a mon that can really threaten my core. It's a mon that I do think he should preserve, in my opinion. He has a pretty reasonable switch out to Wheezing to take on anything that my Landorus wants to go for, barring a +2 Z Fly, which he doesn't know I'm carrying at this point. For all he knows, that could be a Yachi Berry variant to check Tapu Koko more reliably. It could be a Lum variant, but Yachi makes a lot of sense. Like, he sees I get the Intimidate drop. I do have like quite a bit of investment into HP, so if I am a Yachi Berry variant, I'm definitely going to be able to tank an Ice Punch. So I'm going to Swords Dance here, predicting him to make the play of switching out to his Wheezing. And you're going to see, I go for the Swords Dance here. He actually decides to stay in and click Ice Punch. Now, this play, like, I don't really agree with it, as, like, you see I'm going to live on 17. I don't agree with this play because this is his way of breaking my, this is literally his wall breaker of my defensive core. This is a mon that can break down my defensive core for something like Scarf Salazzle, which is actually what he is, or his own Tapu Koko to put in the work. I don't agree with him. He would have literally dropped to Earthquake or Z-Fly, as he is an Assault Vest variant. Sorry, he's actually a Life Orb variant of Hitmonchan, and that Ice Punch damage is big. But yeah, so he chose to, I guess, sack it off there. Had I been a Yachi Berry variant, I would have lived it far more like reliably and been able to get an EQ off and drop him. But yeah, he chooses to stay in Ice Punch. It works out for him, I suppose. I know I can live a Muck Punch at this range of health. He's actually going to reveal to be Bullet Punch here, which, considering that like Tapu Lele has Psychic Terrain, like I don't really know what he was trying to hit with Bullet Punch. But anyway, I'm going to bring in my Lele here, and that's okay. Like I have Lele in on this Hitmonchan here. I know I can fire for Psychic. I know nothing really wants to switch in. Like Clef Key can switch in, but it's going to be taking a whole lot. And the fact that I have kind of determined that it's a bit of an offensive set, like just judging by the Dazzling Gleam damage off on my Thunderous, I know that this Psychic is going to do a lot of damage. You guys are going to see, this is a resist. This is a resist, and it does well over half. We get the meaningless Spadef drop, which doesn't matter. My opponent goes to the switcheroo here. He actually told me after the match that he was an Iron Ball set, so he was trying to switcheroo the Iron Ball onto my Tapu Lele to ensure that I always move last and I'd be outsped by things like his Tapu Koko. So that was a really cool bring on his part. Unfortunately, he slipped up on the mechanics of Psychic Terrain. Understandable, it's the beginning of a new gen, you know, like we're still learning all these mechanics, but unfortunate for my opponent, he didn't realize that was actually how the terrain works. So we're going to be able to 2 KO this Klefki. To be honest, anything that he went for there, like I outsped, so had he gone for an attacking move there, I literally just outsped him and killed him. So nothing really he could have done there anyway. Like he could have switched out, but then something else would have died. So we remove his Spike Setter and we remove one of his biggest roadblocks, the Tapu Lele, which is great. Well, when I say roadblock, it's not really a roadblock. It got 2 KO'd, but this is a mon that can actually take on Lele from the range of health that it's at. So I'm going to go out into my Registeel once again. And he's going to protect, wanting to get a little bit more lefties in case I got greedy and tried to stay in there. But I'm not trying to take a liquidation, as if this is like his liquidation is boosted by his ability, so he could potentially crit me and take me out. I know I could live one, but because he's like a specially defensive set, but I didn't want to risk the crit. No point risking like one of my best win conditions here. So I'm going to go back out into my Registeel. And this turn I am just going to get my rocks back up again. Because if I can get my rocks up and keep them up, then his Araquanid is not a switch into Tapu Lele, as it will get 2 KO'd. It's going to get 2 KO'd from that range of health anyway, but he does choose to spin this turn, making the switch out to his Hitmonchan on my predictable rocks, as I am going to stay in and go for the Iron Head here. I'm a defensive set, so I know I can tank a close combat or a Drain Punch or whatever it was he wanted to go for. I just want to get a bit of damage off on this Hitmonchan, as I figured he would Rapid Spin there. And had he decided to close combat the first turn or Drain Punch the first turn, I could have switched out to my Tapu Lele on the Rapid Spin and got a kill the next turn, as Araquanid would have been 2 KO'd. But this turn, I am going to go into my Lele, predicting him to go for the close combat or the Drain Punch. He does go for the close combat, and we're going to eat that up as we 4 times resist it. And that's a pretty strong move, but Lele, you know, the resistance is coming through, so we're going to just fire for another Psychic here, and he's going to switch out this time, going to go out into his Tapu Koko. Smart play in his spot because he does get the Electric Terrain up, which is going to reduce the power of my Psychic, but I'm still a modest Tapu Lele, and that's still going to take out his Koko, so that's another huge threat down. So at this point, 2 of his biggest threats on his team are down. The only thing that really threatens me at this point is his Hitmonchan. His Salazzle isn't too big of a threat because I do have stuff like Licky and Mach to really take it on. But this time I'm going to go out to my Registeel. Again, my switch into this Araquanid. I could have doubled here. I could have switched out this turn and gone out into my Tapu Lele on his Hitmonchan, as he does keep on making the predictable play, but I really don't have any reason to make these sort of plays. Had he stayed in there and gone for another liquidation on my switch out to Tapu Lele, I could have potentially got crit, you know, again, lost the important win con. I don't need to, I can play safe in this sort of scenario, so he's going to go at this time out into his Salazzle. Good thing I didn't switch out into Lele, because his Salazzle is actually a Scarf variant, and had I got out into my Lele, you know, feeling myself, and had I decided to stay in instead of scouting for Scarf, which I realistically wouldn't have done, but, you know, had I made that play, I could have, you know, really been taken out there with a Sludge Wave, but he's going to bring in his threat, so Salazzle is inside, and I'm just going to switch out, not wanting to risk anything. I'm going to go into my Licky here. If he is a nasty plot variant, I know I can live a +2 Fire Blast with ease, because I'm like max Spadef. He's going to go for the Fire Blast there, and he's actually a modest Scarfed. This damage kind of confused me at the moment, in the moment of the game, but then I realized after a few turns that he was actually a modest Scarf Salazzle, which makes sense. It does outspeed my Tapu Lele. It doesn't outspeed Scarf Thunderous, but I didn't really have a reason to bring Scarf Thunderous. and it does still get the outspeed on a Scuffed Landorus. So yeah, I can understand the modest bring this game. So he's going to bring in his Wheezing on my Licky. I'm just going to protect here just to see what he wanted to go for. It also covered a double on his part if he wanted to double out into Salazzle, predicting my my Muck, or if he wanted to go into his something like his Hitmonchan. But he's just going to go for the Sludge Bomb, and now I'm pretty comfortable just going out into my Muck this turn, just scouting what he wants to go for. He had revealed Sludge Bomb, so I did think, especially after showing this Flamethrower set, that he wasn't like a stockpile set, which is pretty good, because I don't know a lot of these players. Like, I don't really know how they like to build. I know some of the really the better ones, but I don't know. I know some of the people like Aki. I know the way they like to build, but I don't know. You know, some of these guys are pretty unknown to me, so you know, I'm still trying to scout them out. I'm going to go for the mean look here, as he actually makes the play of going out into his Hitmonchan. I don't know if he predicted the mean look there, or he just didn't want to get knocked off, or what, but he's going to go out into his Hitmonchan. I'm going to go into my Lele here, potentially on the Rapid Spin, or even the Close Combat. He's actually going to go for the Ice Punch here. Not really sure what he was trying to catch there. Perhaps he just wanted to get a bit more damage off on my Lele, as it is a pretty safe switch in at the moment to this Hitmonchan. Not anymore though, as I have taken a decent chunk from that Ice Punch, but the monster is back inside, and there's no Tapu Koko around to remove the terrain, so Lele's just going to get another kill here, and yeah, this is pretty solid. This thing is going to go down to another Psychic. I think it's in range of rocks as well, so if he wants to for some reason preserve this and let something else take the hit, then it's gonna go down the next time it comes in, which is pretty solid. But he's gonna sack it off, which is the right play to make. And I believe he's gonna go into out in his Salazzle here, as he does go out. Yep, he goes out into his Salazzle, and this is solid. We get Rock's Chip off on this, which is important, as I'm definitely not going to stay in, because there's no reason you'd bring this in unless you were Scarfed, unless he's just he's a god and he's bluffing the Scarf. But I'm pretty sure he is modest Scarf at this point, as that damage does confirm not to be like timid Flame Plate or something like that. It's definitely like modest, no boosting item. And he's going to switch out here. He's going to go back out into his Wheezing on my Earthquake, which is fine. I go for Earthquake here just in case he did want to stay in. Sorry, I go for Wish this turn. I'm thinking ahead. I just Wish up in case he did want to stay in and Flamethrower. If he does want to go out to James, then I can. His Wheezing, then I can keep Licky at a pretty nice amount of health. This is just such a solid check to his Salazzle, which if I didn't really have Licky around, Muck would be a lot more pressure to deal with it. I'm going to go for an Ice Beam here, and I'd get a Freeze off on his Wheezing, which is pretty unfortunate for my opponent. Not that Wheezing could have done much to Licky, but it could have fished for a Sludge Bomb poison, which would have happened eventually. But I do have Muck waiting in the wings, and I can bring this guy in and essentially trap this Muck. There's really nothing this Muck can do to prevent, this Wheezing can do to prevent Muck from just setting up all over its face if I can trap it. But he's going to make the switch out to Hitmonchan once again, not wanting to get trapped. So he's really concerned about Muck trapping, which is clever on his part, because this thing is a beast, and his Ice Punch isn't going to do too much, as we do knock off his. We get the Poison Touch off on the knockoff, which is pretty nice for us, and we do knock off the Assault Vest. I think I said he was Life Orb earlier on in the match. That was a mistake. He is a Assault Vest variant, so that's not going to save him from Tapu Lele, but it is still a pretty solid answer to stuff like Thunderous on my team, because he does have Ice Punch, so pretty nice. He goes for the Close Combat there. We live, and we can knock this Hitmonchan out. Now, the fact that Muck is so low is kind of unfortunate. It means I won't be able to obviously stay in on stuff like Salazzle, but if I can pass a Wish into Muck from Licky, or even if I can just get it in versus the Wheezing, I know I'll be able to rest up and bring Muck back to life. So I'm going to switch out here, go out into my Licky on this Salazzle, as there's really not much this thing can do to me. I know he's not Taunt, and even if he was, I am Oblivious, so Taunt is not going to work versus me, normal Encore, so that's really nice. Licky is just such a fantastic Wish passer in draft. A really solid Cleric in general, so he's going to go out to James this turn, as I do believe I just threw up I think I Earthquake this turn actually. No, I Wish once more. I don't know why I'm thinking I Earthquake. This match happened a while ago, but this is really nice, because this Wish guarantees Muck is going to be revived, brought back to life from big fat Licky, and even if he does make the double out back into Salazzle, the only thing he's really accomplishing is taking Rock's chip. Muck's gonna receive the wish regardless. Had he not, had he thawed there and like gone for flamethrower, it wouldn't have killed me because I'm like max speed F. So Muck's sitting pretty here, and we're about to go in with mean looks. So unless this Weezing is like a clear smog variant, there's really nothing he can do to to check this Muck. He does actually reveal later on in the match to be pain split, so that's definitely it definitely like makes it a bit annoying for my Muck. But you're gonna see we start cursing. I've trapped him now, so essentially it's game over. I can just begin to curse up, and yeah, there's not really much this Weezing can do. Obviously it's frozen, but it will eventually thaw. I do go for the knockoff one of these turns, I believe, just to limit its Black Sludge recovery. And yeah, getting the +1 knockoff there, even though I'm not invested, does a pretty solid chunk to Weezing, and Weezing is a really defensive mon, so yeah, you're going to see how little Flamethrower does right here. It does very little, and with the Black Sludge recovery, it's really going to be doing nothing. But he gets the burn here, which at this point my opponent doesn't know that I have rest, so he really feels as though like the burn there was a big win for him in that sense. It does like prolong the battle because now I have to start cursing more and then rest and then get my rest turns. Like this Muck, especially for Wi-Fi, is pretty annoying because turns like the animations take so long. But yeah, it's a pretty nasty set, and it's definitely effective in this sense. It really deters my opponents from bringing Fat versus me, which they kind of need to deal with Lele, unless they want to bring offense and lose to stuff like you know, Scarf Lando or Double Dance Lando, or even like just Fast Thundy. So that's it's definitely like a nice stall breaker in a sense. Even though you rarely see stall in draft, but it's a really nice fat balance breaker. That's the way I like to put it. But Muck is going to start resting up, and it's at this point that my opponent just kind of realizes that like it's kind of over here, so he's just going to start pain splitting just to get some health back. Obviously each pain split he goes for, it's going to be doing less to me because HP is becoming closer together, and I am getting that recovery with Black Sludge. He's going to start firing off some flamethrowers here, which is fine. I'm just going to be able to continue getting my sleep talk turns off, and yeah, Muck is going to eventually take on this Weezing. So while this end game happens, I'll just give you guys a rundown of what happened in week 3. So we had week 3. We're on to week 4 now in the ITL, and we went into week 3 2-0 because we do win this. We win this. This is a 5-0. Just the spoiler result right here. So we went into week 3 up against Blue Victini, which is another guy who's currently undefeated in the league. Pretty hype match. And yeah, we were having a good match. My Alamamola was stalling out his Volcanion of. He actually brought Webs offense versus me. He brought Webs plus Volcanion, and he brought a Defiant user to take advantage of potential defog. I called him on his Defiant bluff turn 2 by Spirit Shackling his Primeape as it tried to switch him on my Decidueye, in case I wanted to defog. The match then proceeded. He brought in his Volcanion. I had my Alamamola waiting in the wings. I wished up a bit. I scouted for his Z-move Bloom Doom, but my opponent played his Volcanion very well. He did not reveal Bloom Doom until I had well and truly scouted for it. I actually switched out into my Decidueye, then switched back into my Alamamola and protected once more. And on the turn I came in protected, he actually did reveal it. And yeah, so that's just the advantage of you know, making sure you really scout. So we did block his Z move, and that was the match versus Noiverns. So yeah, we got the nice 5-0. But yeah, from there it basically came down to my Alamamola stalling his Volcanion out of Fire Blasts, as well as his Steam Eruptions, so my remaining mons could. So firstly, my Decidueye could get rid of the webs, and my Tapu Lele, my Thundurus, and my Landorus could take on the rest of his team. My opponent decided to timer stall because he recognized the fact that he was going to lose the match and he wanted to preserve differential as best as possible. So unlike Showdown, unlike in the MPL when we play on Showdown, there is a timer obviously in Wi-Fi. So if he brought the game to a draw, then he wouldn't actually lose differential. Like no, you know, I don't have any issue with my opponent doing this. Like I actually quite like the guy. I consider him a friend. And he felt very bad during the match for doing it, but you know it's a viable strat. Like we're playing Wi-Fi, you know, there's a timer, you're gonna make use of the timer. So yeah, the game went on for 55 minutes with I had ways of breaking his Volcanion, but I did want to preserve my differential in the match, and I knew that I could eventually stall him out of Steam Eruptions and Fire Blast. I was actually writing down like how much PP he'd used. Anyway, it came to a point in the match where I believed he'd use up all of his Fire Blasts. I switched into my Decidueye, and he actually had a Fire Blast left, and he took out my Decidueye. But it was cool because my Tapu Lele was able to scare out his Volcanion. My Landorus actually took on his Hippowdon with a Z-Fly into Grass Knot, which took out his Hippowdon. And yeah, we were actually up, and we had 5 minutes left to go. He brought in his Jirachi. I had my Rocky Helmet Alamomola in the back. I switched into it on his Ice Punch, and our game disconnected. So we had 5 minutes left, and the Wi-Fi game DC'd. So, and basically what happened was I was awarded the win because my opponent was timer stalling at that point. Again, just to maintain as best differential as he could. So I will get the win for that game. Unfortunately, there is no replay because the server crashed or whatever. You know, we were both online when we finished, so it's not like either one of us, you know, DC'd on purpose or something like that. It was just the game just cut out, unfortunately. So unfortunately, there's going to be no match. It was a really fun one. Like, go check out Blue Victini as well. He's got a channel, and he's a very good player. He's going to be in the upcoming March Madness tournament, so that's definitely something to look out for. But I'll do a separate video on that. But yeah, so week 3 we did get the win versus Flaming Victini. Unfortunately, had it been on Wi-Fi, like had it been on a Showdown, it would have been over in like half an hour or something like that. But just because timer stalling is a thing on Wi-Fi, it did end up with our game going on for too long. The servers couldn't handle it and it crashed. So unfortunate, but yeah, we still do get the win. So we're 3-0 going into week 4. And yeah, we're facing a pretty interesting team in week 4, so that'll be hopefully that game doesn't DC, and I'll be able to bring you that match to you guys by the end of the week or early next week. So I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, let me know in the comments and drop a like if you did enjoy, and yeah, I'll see you next time, guys.